After I took my last breath, I thought he would finally say it, but he didn't. He just held my hand, squeezed it once, twice, and then he let go. I felt myself rising, weightless, like smoke curling up from a candle someone had just blown out. The hospital room grew smaller beneath me. The machines, the white sheets, my body, still and empty, a shell I'd worn for 52 years. And Michael, my husband, standing there with his hand still extended, as if he couldn't quite believe I'd slipped away. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, but no words came. They never did. I don't remember pain in those final moments, only a strange sense of waiting, like standing at a door, knowing someone is about to knock, but they never do, like holding your breath for a word that never comes. I'd spent 30 years waiting for those words. I love you. 3 syllables, 8 letters. A sentence so simple that children say it without thinking. But Michael couldn't. Or wouldn't. I never knew which. And now I was floating above him, watching him stand beside my body, his shoulders shaking with sobs he wouldn't let anyone hear, his hand covering his mouth, his eyes squeezed shut. And still, even now, he didn't say it. I wanted to scream, to reach down and shake him, to demand that he finally speak the words I'd been starving for since the day we met. But I had no voice anymore, no hands, no way to bridge the distance between us. I was air, light, memory, and memories can't change the past. The first days after death felt like drowning in slow motion. Time moved differently here. Minutes stretched into hours. Hours collapsed into seconds. I existed everywhere and nowhere at once. In the hospital room, at home, in the spaces between moments I'd lived and moments I'd never see. I watched Michael make phone calls, his voice flat, mechanical. She's gone. Yes, this morning. Thank you. I'll let you know about arrangements. He didn't cry on those calls, didn't break. He was always so good at holding things together on the outside while everything inside him crumbled. I knew. I'd seen it for 30 years. The way he'd clench his jaw when something hurt. The way he'd busy himself with tasks when emotions threatened to surface. The way he'd stay up late in his workshop, building things with his hands because his mouth couldn't build the words. I used to think it was strength. Now, floating here in this in between place, I realized it was fear. Michael was afraid of his own heart, and I'd spent 3 decades trying to coax it open. Our daughter Emma arrived that first night. She was 28 now, beautiful, strong, so much braver than either of us had ever been. She walked into the house we'd shared for 25 years, and Michael stood in the kitchen, staring at the coffee maker as if he'd forgotten how to use it. Dad, Emma said softly. He turned, and for a moment, just a flash, I saw his mask crack. She's really gone, he whispered. Emma crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him, and Michael, my stoic, silent husband, finally broke. He sobbed into her shoulder. Great, heaving sobs that shook his whole body. The kind of crying that comes from years of holding back, from decades of words left unsaid. I never told her, he choked out. I never told her enough. Emma held him tighter. She knew, Dad. She knew you loved her. But I didn't. Not really. I'd hoped. I'd believed. I'd convinced myself that love could exist in actions when words fail. That the way he made my coffee every morning meant something. That the way he'd hold my hand during a movie's counted. That the way he'd check the locks before bed was his way of saying, I want to keep you safe. But hope isn't the same as knowing, and belief isn't the same as certainty. I'd needed the words, and he'd never given them to me. The funeral was 3 days later. I watched from somewhere above the church, suspended in that strange half-existence between living and whatever comes next. The pews were full, friends, colleagues, family members I barely remembered. Emma sat in the front row, her hand clasped in her boyfriend's. She'd written a eulogy. Her voice shook as she read it. My mother was the strongest woman I knew. She loved fully, freely, without reservation. She taught me that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was courage. That opening your heart, even when it might break, was the bravest thing you could do. I felt something twist inside me, whatever inside meant now. Because Emma was right, I had loved fully. I'd opened my heart wide and kept it open, even when Michael couldn't do the same. But had it been brave or had it been foolish? Michael sat beside Emma, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the casket. He didn't speak. Even now, even here, he had no words. After the service, people lined up to hug him, to murmur condolences, to say things like, she was a wonderful woman, and you must be devastated, and if you need anything, just call. Michael nodded, thanked them, held himself together, and I hated him for it, not the sharp, sudden hate that burns, but the slow, aching hate that comes from years of disappointment, from being the one who always spoke first, always apologized first, always said I love you and waited, hoped for an echo that never came. I died waiting for those words, and now I was still waiting. The cemetery was on a hill overlooking the town where we'd built our life together. It was a gray day, cold, the kind of February afternoon that seeps into your bones. People stood in clusters, shoulders hunched against the wind, watching as my casket was lowered into the ground. Emma cried quietly. Her boyfriend held her. Michael stood apart, alone, his hands shoved deep in his coat pockets, his jaw clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. The pastor said something about dust and ashes and eternal rest. The words floated past me meaningless, and then it was over. People began to drift away, back to their cars, back to their lives. But Michael stayed. He stood at the edge of my grave, staring down at the casket barely visible beneath the earth. Emma touched his arm. Dad, we should go. In a minute, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. She hesitated, then nodded and walked toward the car with her boyfriend. And Michael was alone, with me, or what was left of me. He knelt in the cold mud beside my grave, pulled something from his coat pocket, a single white rose, my favorite. He placed it gently on the disturbed earth, and then for the first time since I'd died, he spoke. I'm sorry, he whispered, 2 words, not the ones I'd wanted, but something. I'm sorry I never said it. I'm sorry you waited all those years. I'm sorry I was too afraid. My heart, if I still had one, lurched. I loved you, he continued, his voice breaking. I loved you from the first moment I saw you. I loved you when we got married. I loved you every single day, every single moment. But I couldn't say it. I don't know why. I just couldn't. Tears streamed down his face. He didn't wipe them away. You deserve better than me, better than my silence. You deserve someone who could give you the words you needed, and I hate myself for not being that person. He pressed his hand to the earth, to me, to the space where I no longer existed. I love you, he said, finally. I love you, I love you, I love you. He said it over and over, as if he could make up for 30 years in a single afternoon. And something inside me, the thing that had been hard and bitter and resentful, began to crack. Because I'd wanted these words for so long. But I'd wanted them while I was alive. Now they felt like an apology for something that couldn't be fixed. A gift given too late to mean anything. Or so I thought. Michael visited my grave every day. I didn't expect that. He'd never been sentimental, never one for rituals or routines that didn't serve a practical purpose. But every morning, before work, he'd drive to the cemetery, bring a flower, sit on the cold ground beside my headstone, and talk to me. He told me about his day, about the projects he was working on, about Emma's life, about the weather, small things, ordinary things, the kind of things we used to talk about over dinner. Except now I couldn't respond. Couldn't nod or laugh or offer my thoughts. I could only listen. And slowly, as the days turned into weeks, he began to say other things. I was afraid, he told me one gray morning. My whole life I was afraid. My dad never said he loved us, never hugged us, never showed emotion. And I thought that's what being a man meant, being strong, being silent, not needing anyone. He pulled at the grass beside my headstone. But I did need you. I needed you so much. And I thought if I said it out loud, if I admitted how much I loved you, how much I depended on you, I'd be weak, I'd be vulnerable, and if I was vulnerable, you could hurt me. He laughed bitterly. Stupid, right? I was so afraid you'd hurt me that I hurt you instead. I made you feel unwanted, unloved, when the truth was you were everything to me. I wanted to reach out, to touch his shoulder, to tell him I understood. But I couldn't. I could only hover there, a ghost in the space between life and whatever comes next, listening to the man I'd loved, confess things he'd never been able to say while I could hear them in a way that mattered. Emma came to visit me too, less often than Michael. But when she did, she brought flowers and sat cross legged on the grass, talking to me like we were having coffee in my kitchen. I miss you, Mom, she'd say. I miss your laugh. I miss the way you'd always know when something was wrong, even when I tried to hide it. I miss your advice, your hugs, your terrible puns. She'd smile through her tears. Dad's not doing great. I think he's drowning in guilt. He keeps saying he should have told you more. Should have been better. Should have been different. She picked at the grass. I told him you knew that love isn't just words, that you felt it in the way he took care of you, the way he'd fix things around the house without being asked, the way he'd always make sure your car had gas, the way he'd sit with you during your favorite shows, even though he didn't really like them. She was right. I had felt all those things, but I'd still needed the words, and I was beginning to realize something painful. Michael had loved me the only way he knew how. It hadn't been enough, but it had been real. 3 months after my death, Emma brought someone new to my grave, a man, tall, kind-faced. He held her hand as they stood at my headstone. Mom, Emma said softly, I want you to meet Jake. He asked me to marry him, and I said yes. I felt a rush of emotion, joy, pride, a bittersweet ache that I wouldn't be there for her wedding. I wish you could meet him, Emma continued. I wish you could see how happy he makes me. I wish you could give me advice about marriage and love and all the things I'm going to need to know. She pressed her fingers to her lips, then to my headstone. But I think I already know the most important thing, because I watched you and Dad for 28 years, and I learned that love isn't perfect. It's messy, it's complicated. It's learning to speak each other's language even when it's hard. She turned to Jake, and he wrapped his arm around her. Dad loved you, Mom. He wasn't good at showing it, but he did. And you loved him anyway. You loved him through his silence, through his walls, through all the ways he couldn't give you what you needed. She paused. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I'm as strong as you were. Listening to her, something shifted inside me. Because Emma was right about one thing. I had loved Michael anyway, through the silence, through the disappointment, through the nights I cried into my pillow feeling invisible. I'd loved him, not because he deserved it, not because he earned it, but because love isn't a transaction. It's a choice. And I'd chosen him every day for 30 years, even when it hurt. 6 months after my death, Michael brought someone with him to my grave, a woman, gray-haired, kind-eyed. A therapist, I realized, as they sat together on the bench near my headstone, and she asked him gentle questions. When did you first realize you had trouble expressing emotion? She asked. Michael stared at the ground. I don't know. Always, I guess. My dad was the same way. We just didn't talk about feelings in my family. And with your wife? He flinched. She needed words. I knew that. But every time I tried to say them, they'd get stuck. Like there was a wall between my heart and my mouth. And I couldn't break through. What were you afraid would happen if you did? Michael was quiet for a long time. I was afraid she'd see how much I needed her, he finally said. How much power she had over me. And I thought if she knew that, she'd leave. Or worse, she'd stay, but she'd use it against me. The therapist nodded. Did she ever do that? No, Michael admitted. Never. She was the most loving, generous person I've ever known. She gave and gave and gave, and I just took and gave nothing back. You gave what you could, the therapist said gently. It sounds like you showed love through actions, through care, through presence. But it wasn't enough, Michael said, his voice breaking. She needed the words, and I couldn't give them to her. And now she's gone, and I'll never get the chance to make it right. He put his head in his hands and wept. And I wept too, or whatever weeping is when you have no body, no tears, just an ache that fills every particle of your being. Because I'd spent so much of our marriage feeling unseen, unheard, unloved. But listening to him now, hearing his pain, his regret, his love finally spoken aloud, I realized something. Michael had been trapped too, trapped in his own silence, his own fear, his own inability to break free from the patterns his father had taught him. He'd been suffering all along, and I'd never seen it. I'd been so focused on my own hurt that I'd missed his. 1 year after my death, Michael did something unexpected. He joined a grief support group. I watched him sit in a circle of strangers, all of them carrying the weight of loss. A woman who'd lost her son, a man who'd lost his wife of 40 years, a young mother who'd lost her husband in an accident. They went around the circle, sharing their stories. When it was Michael's turn, he cleared his throat. My wife died a year ago, he said, and I never told her I loved her. Not enough, not the way she needed. The group was quiet. I thought love was something you showed, not something you said. I thought if I took care of her, if I was faithful, if I provided for our family, that would be enough. He paused, but it wasn't. She needed words. She needed to hear it. And I was too afraid to say it, too proud, too broken. A woman across the circle spoke. Do you think she knew anyway? Michael thought about it. Maybe. I don't know. I hope so. But hope isn't the same as certainty, is it? The woman shook her head. No, it's not. I'd give anything, Michael said, his voice thick, to go back, to tell her every single day, to make sure she never doubted, to be the husband she deserved. An older man spoke up. You can't go back. None of us can. But you can honor her by being different, by learning, by making sure the people still in your life know how you feel. Michael nodded slowly, and I watched him, this man I'd loved and resented and grieved for, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Compassion. Because he was trying. Too late for me, but still trying. 2 years after my death, Emma got married. It was a small ceremony in a garden overlooking the lake where Michael and I used to take her when she was little. White flowers, string lights, the kind of simple, beautiful celebration I would have loved. Michael walked her down the aisle. I watched from wherever I was, seeing him in his suit, his arm linked through Emma's, his eyes bright with tears he didn't try to hide anymore. He'd changed so much in 2 years. Softer, more open, still quiet, but in a different way. Not the silence of withholding, but the silence of someone who'd learned to listen. During his toast at the reception, he stood and raised his glass. Emma, he said, his voice steady, your mother would be so proud of you today. She would have loved this wedding, loved seeing you this happy, loved Jake for making you smile the way you're smiling right now. He paused, swallowed hard. Your mom taught me something I didn't learn until it was too late. She taught me that love isn't just something you feel. It's something you say, out loud, every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He looked at Emma, then at Jake. Don't make the mistake I made. Don't assume the people you love know how you feel. Tell them every chance you get, because life is short, and the words we leave unspoken haunt us longer than any we say. Emma was crying, so was half the room, and so was I, because Michael was finally saying the things I'd needed him to say, not to me, but because of me, and maybe that was enough. 5 years after my death, Michael met someone. I didn't expect it. Didn't know how to feel about it when I saw them together. Her name was Grace. She was a widow. They'd met at the grief support group and started having coffee. Then dinners. Then something more. She was kind, patient, easy to talk to in a way I'd never been. Where I'd pushed and prodded and demanded emotional honesty, Grace simply created space and waited. And Michael, in that space, bloomed. He told her about me, about our marriage, about his regrets. I failed her, he said one evening as they sat on his porch. My porch, the one he'd built with his own hands 30 years ago. Grace shook her head. You loved her the best way you knew how. That's not failure. But it wasn't enough. Maybe not, but love rarely is. We're all just doing our best with broken hearts and imperfect words. Michael was quiet. Do you think she forgave me? He finally asked. Grace smiled. I think if she loved you, really loved you, then yes, she did. Watching them, I realized something. I had forgiven him. Not in one moment, not in a burst of divine revelation, but slowly, over years, through watching him grieve, watching him grow, watching him learn to speak the language of love he'd never learned as a child. I'd forgiven him because holding on to anger, even in death, was exhausting. And because forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's behavior, it's about releasing yourself from the prison of bitterness. 7 years after my death, Michael brought Grace to my grave. They stood together in front of my headstone, hand in hand. I wanted you to meet her, Michael said softly. I know that's strange, but I feel like you should know. He paused. Her name is Grace, and she's taught me things about myself, about love, things I wish I'd known when you were alive. Grace squeezed his hand. I'll never stop loving you, Michael continued. You were my first love, my great love, the mother of my child, and I carry you with me every day. He knelt down, placed a white rose on the grass. But I'm learning to live again, to love again, and I hope you'd want that for me. He looked up at the sky as if he could see me there. Thank you, he whispered, for loving me when I didn't deserve it, for staying when I gave you every reason to leave, for teaching me, even in death, what it means to truly love someone. And there, suspended in the space between earth and heaven, I felt something shift. A lightness, a release. I didn't need to stay anymore. Michael would be okay. Emma would be okay. The life we'd built together would continue, even without me, and I could finally let go. The light came slowly, not sudden, not dramatic, just a gentle brightening, like dawn breaking after the longest night. It wrapped around me, warm and soft, pulling me forward. I looked back one last time at Michael, standing beside my grave, at Grace holding his hand, at the world I'd left behind. And I understood something I'd spent my whole life searching for. Love doesn't end when we die. It transforms. It becomes something bigger than words or actions or the ways we fail each other. It becomes forgiveness, memory, the legacy we leave in the hearts of those who survive us. Michael had loved me, imperfectly, incompletely, but truly, and I had loved him through disappointment, through hurt, through all the ways he couldn't give me what I needed, because that's what love is. Not perfection, but presence. Not always knowing what to say, but staying anyway. I stepped into the light, and it was like coming home. If I could leave you with anything, it would be this. Don't wait. Don't hold back the words because you're afraid, because you're proud, because you think actions should be enough. Say it. Say, I love you to the people who matter. Say it early. Say it often. Say it even when it feels awkward or unnecessary or redundant. Because no one has ever said it too much. But so many of us have said it too little. I spent 30 years waiting for 3 words. Michael spent 30 years afraid to say them. And in the end, we both lost. Not because the love wasn't there, but because we couldn't bridge the gap between feeling and speaking. Don't make our mistake. Life is short, love is complicated, but words, simple, honest words, can heal wounds you didn't know you had. They can build bridges, they can save marriages, they can give someone the certainty they've been desperately seeking. So say it before it's too late. Before you're standing at a grave, whispering words that can no longer be heard, say it now, while it still matters, while the person you love can hear it and hold it and carry it with them through all the hard days ahead. I wish Michael had said it. I wish I'd told him how much I needed to hear it. I wish we'd been braver, more honest, more willing to be vulnerable with each other, but we weren't. And now all we have are regrets and what ifs and the words spoken too late to make a difference. Don't let that be your story. Love out loud. Speak your truth. Tell the people you cherish that they matter, because one day you won't get another chance. And the silence you leave behind will echo far longer than any words you were afraid to say. After I took my last breath, I thought he would finally say it, and he did, just not to me. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the point of love isn't to receive everything we need. Maybe it's to give everything we can. And to trust that somehow, in the end, it's enough. I loved him. He loved me. Imperfectly, incompletely, but truly. And in the light where I am now, that's all that matters. If this story stirred something in your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Being Higher for more stories that remind us what it means to rise above our pain, to forgive what we thought was unforgivable, and to love even when it's hard. Because we're all on this journey together, learning to speak the language of the heart before it's too late. I'll meet you in the next story. Until then, say the words, don't wait. Choose love, choose courage, choose to be higher, choose to be.